You guys probably have seen people like, posting pictures of stuff from Cuba and being like, this is your socialist paradise. Particularly like with in shops where they like post pictures of like shelves of products that are like all the same brand because apparently you need more than one brand of canned corn or something. And also like the pictures of the houses, particularly in the center of Havana. And I saw this tweet, which is basically just an example of all of that. I don't want to single this guy out too much. It's obviously just like some ignorant anime child from the USA who calls himself a neoliberal. So, you can't expect much from them. Like, you can't expect them to know anything about the world. But the people who like post these as some sort of indictment of Cuba definitely do not know anything about the world. For one, these houses are significantly above average from world standards. Well, this one is pretty average. If you've never seen houses like this in your life, you are an incredibly privileged, rich bastard, and you don't really know much about the world. Because if you actually look at what these houses are, you have this one looks like a corrugated iron roof, face of a corrugated iron roof, which isn't that great, but the rest of these are pretty normal. They're just poorly maintained on the outside. Generally, on the inside, they're much better maintained. I mean, not like perfectly maintained, but I went over this in my video on Cuba. I'm not going to go over the pictures again because I'm too lazy, but they're better on the inside than they look on the outside. But still, this is like pretty average house. Yeah, it's like, oh, they're not like my fucking suburban house that I live in, in a dark room that my parents own, and they desperately want me to leave, but they don't have the hearts to kick me out. This is fairly average. 25% of the people in the world live in literal shanty towns, and this is above that. So, and the second one is just mind-boggling that it was even posted. This is far above the average for the world. Like 90% of people in the world live in worse housing than this. Like, this is normal, decent apartment buildings. What's the issue here exactly? That there's pure aesthetic blemishes on the facade of the balcony. And that is like literally the least important thing imaginable. If my house had that problem, I probably wouldn't even get it fixed because it just doesn't really seem like a huge issue unless I was forced to do it by like the council or something. This is incredibly fucking normal. I genuinely can't fucking believe how sheltered do you need to be to post this image as an example of poor housing? Like this guy says, but there's no homelessness in Cuba. The housing. So the implication is that this is worse than homelessness. No, it's not. This is not worse than homelessness. This is in fact better than like what 90% of the people in the world have to live in. You can tell that like neoliberals are all sheltered suburbanites because they look at something like this and they're like, holy shit, I can't fucking believe that. They've never seen anywhere else in the world. You want me to show you what neoliberal housing is like? This is neoliberal housing, dude. Cuba is a fucking paradise in comparison. This is what you want, right? This is what you guys want. This shit. Hell yeah. Cuba needs some neoliberalized housing ASAP. I'm telling you right now, the first image there is average. This is the average housing for most people in the world. That is a fact. And the thing is, most people in the world don't even have decent interiors. Like the facade of the house reflects what it is inside. Another thing is the reason why this happens is because of the embargo. Cuba cannot import cement, and it doesn't really have the ability to make cement very efficiently in the country itself. The Mexican cement manufacturing company Cemex, which until around 2000, Cuba relied on to import and produce its own cement because they had a factory in Cuba itself making cement, withdrew from Cuba and stopped exporting cement to Cuba because of US sanctions. It's a Mexican company, and they stopped doing it because of US sanctions. Cuba cannot import most building materials in any remotely efficient manner, and it's all because of the embargo. But I mean, still, come on, it's not bad at all. And you want to see, like, the average house in Cuba. Let's look at like a non-Havana city, Julian. There's lots of like, shack sort of things, as you see in most other poor countries. There's these sorts of houses which are more rural, which are fairly normal. You'll even see these in richer countries, like Uruguay has lots of these as well. And then but the regular city houses, the suburban houses are more like this. Yeah, I mean, sort of like this. This is like very similar to. It's a bit like the street isn't as wide, but this sort of street here is like very. I see these streets are all over Argentina, for example. They're all over everywhere in Latin America. Stuff like this. These are fucking normal houses. These are even better than most houses in the world. Another thing is Cuba also has newer apartments. Havana is pretty unique in mostly being older buildings. Most of the rest of the country has plenty of single-family dwellings. If you search Cuba houses on Google, they're probably all going to be really bad. You see, that guy just found like a picture from the first page of fucking Google. And you can see that he specifically chose this one out of a ton of other options that look significantly better. Like it's just cherry picking. Damn, what an awful place to live, man. This looks nightmarish. We better not show anyone this, and we better show them the other images instead. Yeah, these are like newer houses in Cuba. There's lots of these. If you look at like people traveling outside of Havana in Cuba on YouTube, they inadvertently walk past tons of these sorts of houses. And there's also newer apartment blocks, though not in Havana. It's amazing that they found this is also the exact same fucking image. They found it from. This was being used as an example in a Havana Times article of a terrible, like, unacceptably bad Cuban house. I don't get it. Like, this is basically the exact same age as like the apartment building that I live in, without a coat of paint on the outside. And this is an example of the newer apartment blocks that were built after the revolution, the social housing. This looks fine. What's wrong with this exactly? You can even see there's lots of living space. They can come here. There is room. There's plenty of green space for your kids to run around in, so you don't need to go and colonize Palestine. Huge bonus. So what's the issue? What's the fucking issue here? What's the problem? I don't know. You don't know. No one knows. Because there isn't one. Havana is like an outlier in that the city tries to or the government tries to keep the old buildings rather than just building new ones, which I mean isn't a terrible strategy, though they are difficult to maintain. But outside of Havana, most of the houses that you see are newer or better maintained. Cuba is a country that punches far above its weight for what you would expect it to, considering what it's gone through with the embargo and just in general having always been a fairly poor country. Because the average person in a Latin American country forcibly neoliberalized by the US and Europe doesn't live in houses that are as good as those in Cuba. That is a fact. Sheltered, ignorant, rich kids from first world countries that are built off the exploitation of countries like Cuba, now attacking Cuba for having housing, guaranteed housing for all of its population that is at best average, at worst average, and at best far better than what most people in the world live in. Apparently, like, it's worse to live in like an ugly house on the exterior than it is to live in average American housing. This is better, apparently. I'm pretty sure there are more people who live in this sort of state in the USA than there are people who live in Havana total. Only 500,000? That sounds low. That sounds very low. How is it that California has 160,000, but the entire country only has 500,000? Yeah, I don't trust these numbers. They seem way undercounted. Like, Havana's entire population is 2 million. And I guarantee you there are more homeless people in the USA than that. It's unbelievable to make a tweet like that saying like, oh, there's no homelessness. Yeah, but there are these houses. Excuse me. These houses are fucking fine? What the fuck are you talking about, you fucking moron? Holy shit, you sheltered fucking moron. And these posts, not just this guy, this is like hundreds of thousands of sheltered morons who say this stuff about Cuba. And you can tell immediately that they have been cold through their entire life. They've never even had to see like a poor neighborhood in their entire life anywhere in the world. That's the only way that you can say these sorts of things, unironically with a straight face.